Hey guys, and welcome back to Mortal Shell. We got a little bit of video today, and we're going to talk about Eredrim and why you should be playing as him. If you aren't, I'm going to explain to you why you should. Specifically, this is probably for players who are new to Souls-like games, and even for veterans of Souls-like games who really love vitality kind of builds, tanky kind of builds. Airdrum is the perfect example of a tank-like build in the game. And he looks like he comes with a drawback because he has such low stamina. But in honesty, you can mitigate that once you understand the playstyle of the game. So let's take a look at Eredrim and let's kind of understand what we're looking at with the character. Number one, you notice that he has the largest health pool out of anybody in the game. His health pool is longer than Teal's stamina bar, so that's really good. He does have very low resolve and low stamina. So that's going to come into how you play the game. I like to use Airdrum because, and I say that he should be used for beginner players and veteran players, because this game isn't like Dark Souls where you have the parry mechanic is exactly the same, and Airdrum is really good for basically being able to practice those parry mechanics because he has such a large health pool. There's no way you're going to practice the depth of hardening and the parry mechanic with a character like Teal, who can only take maybe about 2 hits at most. And even with Pharaohs and Solomon, you still probably aren't going to get take as many hits and have that kind of leniency and whether or not you're going to be lost from your lost from your shell. Airdrum kind of plays perfectly, in my opinion, with that, and it's just for that reason that I think that he's probably, in my opinion, he's probably the best shell in the game for new players. Airdrum also has a secondary mechanic, or his third mechanic, the mechanic that he has is centered around him, that is really awesome, and it's his ability to stack kills. So in the bottom left of the screen, right above the resolve, you can see the number 2 sitting, and that is going to increase. That resolve is going to increase as you take, you kill kills, as you can see right there. So now it went up to 3. So that stack is going to go up to a max of 100. So the weird part about that stack, though, is trying to understand how that stack actually plays out for increasing the damage, because it's not quite what you think it is, meaning that it's not a 1-for-1. You're not getting 1 point increased damage for every kill that you get. It's something more like along the lines of every 10 to 15 kills that you get. Oh, he cut me. It's like every 10 to 15 kills you get, you see the noticeable increase in terms of damage output that you're doing. Trust me when I say that over time it does pan out. Now if you look at the damage numbers and the multipliers, if you turn on display numbers for the damage stat, it doesn't quite look as great. You're literally seeing like maybe 1 tick of damage, which is really weird in this game, because unlike Dark Souls games where you had multiple weapons and each weapon had their own kind of numerical values and stats that were assigned to them, there are none in differentiation in terms of that, which can feel I don't want to talk crap about the game, but I'm going to be honest, it feels very disingenuous, because there's no way that my Hallowed Sword should be doing as much damage as, let's say, my, the Martyr's Blade, or, what's the other weapon? The Martyr's Blade or the Fire Mace. They just shouldn't be, and that's the honest truth about it. But yet, for some reason, they do. Now, they all have different move sets, which makes the weapons feel unique, but they don't feel unique in damage, and you almost have this weird feeling of, well, why did I use the martyr's blade instead of the hallow sword? Why did I use the mace instead of the hallow sword? You notice a difference in terms of using the hammer and sickle, which is probably everybody's favorite weapon, but you don't really see that difference in terms of utilizing this the other two. Now, supposedly the reason why you have the other two in the Martyr's Blade and the what you call is because they deal heavier damage to shielded weapons and enemies and stuff like that, and they can take them down. I happen to think Eredrim looks really cool with the Martyr's Blade on, but yeah, it's not quite. It's just for some reason just feels very misleading to me, if I'm being perfectly honest. So Airdrum's stacks basically go up as you do kills, and the great part about his stacks is that they don't go away. They don't go away at all. Unless you are removed from Airdrum Shell, they do not disappear. Those stacks stay with you. You can leave zones, go into temples, leave temples, and they stay. You can fall off of a cliff and die, and they will still stay. As long as you do not leave the shell, you keep those stacks. And that's really, really good. But it also makes Eredrim's tree, his skill ability tree, really kind of weird. And I'll explain that. So when you actually look at the skill abilities for Eredrim, you see immediately along the left side, so let's look at the left side of the wheel first, that his dominance ability basically says that when Airdrum is lodged from his shell, or that when you reclaim his shell, that means you've had to leave the shell in the first place, you'll deal massive damage, sometimes exploding enemies. Well, that's not the way you're trying to play the game. You do have or play this specific shell, because if you leave his shell, then you lose those stacks. So do you want this massive attack damage, or do you want this continued damage that's coming from his resolve ability, where he's getting these execution stacks that's up there? That's so it's kind of going against his playstyle when you have that. The other thing is that he has foresight, and it's like Eredrim gains a buff which reduces damage taken by 5% for 10 seconds. I haven't invested in this because I just don't see how great 5% is. It just doesn't seem like quite that much. Obviously, you have to use out the whole skill tree, so I'll get there, but there are other abilities that are more important, and we'll get to those. Then we also have his Yearning stat, which is Eredrim is occasionally able to resist being knocked down. I hate abilities like this, especially in games that don't detail stuff, because it says Eredrim is occasionally able to resist being knocked down. What does that mean to us, the player? We see no values in terms of stats and stuff like this, so it makes things like that where you're saying Eredrim is occasionally able to resist. What is his resist from being knocked down in the first place? We don't know, we can't tell, so that ability probably will wait all the way to the end for me. I only notice Airdrum get knocked down from enemies when they're doing like their heavy unblockable attacks, and that's usually from the much larger enemies. So then we take a look at Airdrum's other abilities, and now we get to the right side of his wheel where you're automatically going to see some synergy and stuff in here. So for instance, Airdrum gains execution stacks upon killing enemies. This is great. It also synergizes really well with his recollection of death, where basically it says regain the last chance upon defeating enough foes. So you're always going to be hunting for those stacks, whether that means that you run around and kill some enemies before you enter a temple or before you enter a boss fight to get those stacks. You're always going to be hunting for that, for those stacks. So this works out well with it. The other one that Eredrim has right here is Eredrim's max HP is increased by 15%. Doesn't seem like quite a lot, but it kind of works out to a really big health bar, and means that Eredrim is pretty much allowed to play the game in a more aggressive manner because he has that large health bar. Then you have, this is another one of those abilities that I really hate, but I used it. Eredrim's attacks deal additional poise damage, causing enemies to stagger more frequently. I've run through the Obsidian area, and I've run through the Fire Temple, and I'm going to be honest with you, I do not see the poise damage that is happening. I don't see the stagger any more than it was in the beginning of the game. And again, this is one of those bad abilities because you're literally trying to account for something that you have no basis on. So it's almost like playing a gotcha game, right? And you play the gotcha game and they don't tell you what your rates are. And so, well, if you tell me I get a chance to do this, but the chance is starting off at like 0.0005%, and the additional poise or the additional chance is only 0.002%, that's not a lot. It's not going to really change anything. And unfortunately, with ability like that, that's where I feel like it's coming into play. I don't know what the additional poise is. I don't know what the base poise is. I don't even know if the poise is any more than any of the other shells. So, and I would like that, in the future, maybe the developers take a look at that and say that if you're going to add stuff like that in where they're just not direct abilities and says that he just staggers enemies more frequently, then that we, the player, get something that we can see into what is behind the system. I can't see it. Then this is the last ability. I'm going to say you should get this one immediately, or not necessarily immediately, but it should definitely be in the top 3 list. In my tops, I would definitely say get the resolve, get the HP, so that's 1 and 2, then get the inheritance, and then get the poise. The reason why I say get the inheritance is because it's a really, really weird game design. And so in terms of game design, you are never, ever fighting enemies who are alone. They are consistently always grouped up in the world. The only place where you are fighting enemies alone is usually when you have what I like to call the field bosses or gatekeepers, 2 areas and stuff like that, or you're fighting a boss. That's it. That is literally it. That's the only time that you're fighting these bosses, or you're alone with them. So it comes into play obviously with that. So you want to take that into consideration. So another thing with Airdrum, if you do intend to play with him, right, is that you are going to want to immediately, however you choose to do it is entirely up to you, but you want to farm for 3,000 tar. Get 3,000 tar immediately as soon as you can, and you want to purchase the forbidden offering from the corrupted Cester that is inside the in the obsidian, the entry area to the obsidian temple. You can watch one of my previous videos where it literally shows you where this corrupted Cester is, and she's pretty much to the left of the staircase that walks you into the temple right before you fight the guy. And she's going to sell this forbidden offering. The reason why I say it's especially needed for a character like Eredrim is because he has such low resolve. So if you want to use parry a lot, you want to use these other abilities, you're going to need that forbidden offering in order to boost up his resolve. And trust me, this is probably the biggest boost item in the game, in my opinion, in terms of like how the things are working out. So you definitely want to get that item. The forbidden offering must have item. It's literally going to boost up your is going to boost up your tarnish seal, and it's going to really help out with that. So trust me, get that. And you'll see your resolve numbers go up significantly, and the time that it takes to get those up. For me, I'm only using resolve mostly with Airdrum to use weapon abilities, not necessarily parrying very much. The parry mechanic inside this game is very, very finicky. It is one of those weird things where it takes a lot to get used to, a whole lot to get used to. So it's one of those things that you're gonna have to practice, and so it'll help out a lot with somebody like Eredrim, because as you go through the game, you're gonna get solemn offerings that are gonna allow you to boost up the heal that you get from parries, and this is your only source of healing. Your only source of healing. I am saying that because I understand that you can pick up these welt caps and you can pick up roasted rats and so forth like that, but if you notice with all of them, they have really trash regenerations on them. 30 health, 35 health, That is not a lot of health, especially on a character like Airdrum. You'll see that little health bar go up. Use one of these caps, and that's about it. The other thing that you have is the mortal token that you have over here, and you could use those to get health as well from to go up on a character. Basically, you harden, and that item will increase your health as well on hit when you harden. So with Airdrum, there are a couple of weapon combos that you can use. So for instance, I'm going to try to show you guys all 4 weapons so that you can see how they affect Airdrum's stamina bar. That is a heavy attack with Airdrum, and that's probably pretty much the combo I use most of the time. The entire game, realistically, so far can be beat pretty much with this combination of rust attack, dodge, or rust attack, harden, and then resume abilities. I'm not kidding you. I'm not going to say anything bad about it because I remember when I played Demon Souls in the very first Dark Souls, piercing weapons had so much damage on them, and you could literally just thrust your way through the whole game. It literally was a cheese. But you can see that the Hallow Sword gives him somewhat balancing. This is what I mean by the difference in terms of the game. So I can do 1, 2, and that's it, and then a third attack that I can come, but I had no way now to roll out of that. I can do 1, 2, 3, and then I can roll with my light attack. So I'm getting 1 attack more from a light attack versus a heavy attack. So now we'll switch to one of the heavier weapons, the Martyr's Blade. Now, I love the way this thing looks. It is absolutely amazing. It's definitely huge. Reminds me of great swords, and I loved playing with great swords inside of Dark Souls. So I am planning on giving this weapon a go. So you have 1 attack, 2 attacks, and now you can get the hell out of dodge, right? That was light attacks. Then you have heavy attack and heavy attack, and that's all you get. Now, the benefit of having a weapon like this greatsword is that you have a lot of range. However, the one thing that I noticed inside this game is that your enemies typically will have like jolt attacks, and it's hard to explain what that is. And what I mean by it is that their tracking in this game is kind of annoying. And what I mean by annoying is that I could literally dodge roll early in an enemy's attack animation, and somehow the tracking will still pick up where I'm at, even if I'm behind them. And instead of them falling back where their attack would be, it's still gonna come towards me. So you have to be good at timing these enemies' attacks. Now, that doesn't make this weapon bad, but you can see the limitations on somebody like Eredrim using this weapon. You are definitely going to have to learn to be parrying and to harden in the middle of these attacks, because you might be inside that attack animation and you might end up getting hit if you don't harden through. Now, hardening technique is, to me, probably one of the most pivotal things that you're going to have to pick up with Airdrum. Just gonna have to. It's just it must have. So that's the Martyr's Blade. And then you have the Smoldering Mace, which has range, and I'm not a fan of it, to be perfectly honest. That's a light attack, and you notice that it has the same, basically 1, 2, and then I get a third, and I come back. So I'm not quite losing out as much as I am with the Martyr's Blade. Heavy attack. Holy crap, did you see how long that windup was? And you see how long it's taken the regeneration to go back? Yeah, so it is quite the windup in terms of this. But now it's also an AoE dealing kind of weapon. My big caveat with these weapons and talking about them with Airdrum in terms of the usability of them, especially with someone who has such low stamina, is still the concern that I'm not getting very much more damage for doing this than if I had the Hollow Sword and did a heavy attack as well. There's no damage difference at all, and I can hit multiple targets with the Hollow Sword on heavy swings just as easily as I can with this weapon. The range isn't that much greater. So the risk of doing this long windup versus the attack of the Hallow Sword, way more for the same exact damage. And then finally, we're going to have everybody's favorite weapon, which is the Hammer and Sickle, which in my opinion is probably akin to your Hallowed Sword and the weapon that most people are going to play with regardless of the class that they have. And you can see a light attack with him, I can get probably about 5 attacks before I have to get the heck out of dodge. Light attacks. The heavy attack, I can still get about 3 or 4 off. They have really cool animations. So this is the quickest of the weapons that obviously, as you can see. Really cool. The animation for its lunging attack, cool. Nice gap closer. Really long compared to a lot of the weapons. I just love the way Eredrim looks. To me, he's just awesome. I really like his character. I'm gonna say that he is definitely the character to play if you are a new beginning player. He's definitely the character to play even if you're not a new beginning player. So take a look at Airdrum, take a time to explore his shell, see what it is that he has to offer, and understand that you know, when you play as him, he's going to give you time to learn the skill mechanics of the game, more so than any other character. I definitely believe that you should be playing as Eredrim, and if you're not, you gotta ask yourself why. Eredrim the Venerable is awesome. Alright guys, until next time, peace.